Good morning, everyone. This is Scott Crane. Sorry, we were on mute, and so you obviously haven't been hearing us, so we had to rejoin. For those who just joined, please make sure you get on the Zoom. We're going to walk through a PowerPoint slide deck, and we have some demo. So make sure you join the Zoom so you can follow along. And I'm going to turn it over to Jesse here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry we had a little voice issue. Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate your willingness to walk through this stuff with us. Thank you for your patience as we work through these updates. And as always, thank you for the very important work that you do every day. So as Scott mentioned, if you look to Zoom, there should be a PowerPoint that you're able to view. If you go to slide 2, there's some usage stats showing updated plans, created service plans, the enter RAI, and created cases over the last 2 days. So that should be April 17th, not April 18th. A little typo there, but that just gives you an idea of the activity the network has completed over the last 2 days. That's really great progress. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so then if you can go ahead and skip down, the next slide is CAM's feature priorities, and then slide 4, we start to get into those. So I'm going to turn it over to eImagine to guide us from here.
Perfect. So this is Laura Hampton from eImagine. So we're just going to walk through some of the things that our team is focused on currently. These may be items that you have submitted help desk tickets in. There are also items that have been brought up in the chat for the Zoom previously. So we thought it was important to kind of recap the things that our team is focused on right now. We also ask that if there's something that our team is not focused on in this list, and you feel like it is a true priority that we need to get addressed in a very timely manner, to please put that in the Zoom chat. And if you do have a help desk ticket tied to that item, please do include that as well. If it's something associated with one of these 4 items, which I'll walk through in just a moment, no need to reiterate the priority. We do realize that we need to get these things addressed. So the first item on the list is RFIs. So we have identified through some help desk tickets and then input from all of you that there is a gap in this process. And so we are currently working with the Division of Aging to address this, and we do plan to have a resolution for this item in place very, very soon. The second item that we're working on actively is NOAs. There's currently an issue that you're probably seeing when an NOA is sent out. It's sent out using what we're calling secure mail, which essentially means that because it has some PII in it, we're sending the mail in a different manner just so it's more secured. There's an issue there. So essentially, that secure email is stripping out all of the data that's on the actual attachment for the email. So we're actively looking at that. We actually have to work with the Indiana Office of Technology to resolve that item, and they are currently engaged on it. We want to note that there is currently a workaround to generate an NOA within CAMS. There is a Knowledgebase article for it, and we will be sure to point folks in the direction of that. So essentially, you can generate your own NOA within CAMS, but we do realize that this is not ideal, as it does require additional effort for the case manager to not only generate the NOA, but then to have to send it out manually. So we did want to recognize that, but please do know that we are actively working on that, and we have engaged the Indiana Office of Technology as well. The third item on the list is RFAs. There's a few issues that we've seen come through the help desk regarding this, and then also we've received feedback via the Zoom. So we are working on that as well. And then the fourth item on the list is Paypoints. we have received some questions there, and there's a few questions. So one of the things that we've received questions about is how to actually access the Paypoint report. So we're actually going to walk through that today. We'll just share our screen within CAMS and show you how to navigate to it. The second item that we've seen is some questions, and they really revolve around that time during which Insight was shut down and the time CAMS went live. So for a lot of you, that's March 27th through April 1st. So if there were any ADRC related Paypoint activities that were completed in that time frame, that March 27th, depending on when your AAA shut down Insight, and April 1st, meaning when CAMS went live, then those ADRC related Paypoint events will need to be entered in CAMS. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. I do know that there's been some email communication regarding this, that sometimes, you know, email isn't the best way to get things across. So we wanted to make sure we mention that as well. So again, these are kind of our top priorities at the moment, but we did want to open it up on the Zoom. If you feel like there are additional items that our team really needs to be focused on, and those are equal or greater priority than these items, then please do let us know. So now we're going to jump into the tips and tricks portion of our meeting today. And we have Stacy Cisse from eImagine. She's going to do some walking through and demoing. So give us just a moment here, and we're going to get her set up so that she can share her screen. You might have 30 seconds or 60 seconds of silence here while we get it set up, and we'll jump right in. Thank you, guys.
Okay, everybody, thank you for your patience. We're going to start off by taking a look at the CAMS Resource Center. I'm going to start off in our production environment, since that's where the Resource Center is accessible from. And then for the rest of the demo, I'm going to switch over to our QA environment, so we don't have to worry about any PII. So we're going to start in production, which everybody should be able to see my screen, and we're going to navigate to the CAMS Resource Center. So the first thing you're going to do is up here on the blue bar ribbon at the top, you're going to press the, we call it the hamburger button. It's 3 horizontal lines. So I'm going to go ahead and press that, and you'll see all the way over to the right is the Help Center. When I press the Help Center button, you should see 2 drop-down options. The bottom one says CAMS Resource Center. This is going to be where we've talked about knowledge-based articles being. As soon as you click on that link, it's going to bring you to a list of published articles. From here, you'll be able to find a variety of pieces of information. So all of the training material that you went through in Relias is loaded in here in the knowledge base. In addition to that is a lot of the articles we've been talking about on these calls. So whenever we encounter kind of questions that we get that we have answers for, we've been loading those as knowledge-based articles here into the CAMS Resource Center. You'll notice that each of them has a base template, kind of tells you which of those categories that we just talked about those articles fall into. So for example, you'll notice this top one's an FAQ. It's titled Work Codes, Previously Activity Codes. If I double click on that, I can open it up and I can read the contents of this knowledge-based article. So here's the question: are the work codes in CAMS the same as the activity codes in Insight? You'll also see answers to those. If there's any attachments as well, you'll be able to see those. down here in the related documents section. So for some of those materials, such as QRGs that you saw during training, those are loaded and attached down there in the related documents. You can also use the search box up here in the CAMS Resource Center to look for a particular topic. So I know one of the ones that Jesse mentioned just a few minutes ago was NOA. So if I type NOA in here, I'll see 4 different articles that relate to those NOAs. What I'm looking for is the ability to send and print an NOA. I can open that up. Okay, so that's a look at the CAMS Resource Center. So I'm going to go ahead and log out of our production environment and go over to our wrong one. Log into our, sorry.
Everybody likes your kids, Stacy.
Thank you. They are adorable. Now I'm a little embarrassed. Oh, it's going to be a good day. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is using views. So I'm going to use example of a service plan view. So I'm going to navigate to service plans. And you'll notice that there is a list of different views available here. I have, this is the default view that I went to when I accessed service plans. But if I hit this drop down arrow, you'll see all the available views that I can see in my environment. And I could choose any of those. So if I decided I wanted to see inactive service plans, I could click on that view. If you have a favorite view that you want to default to, this little push pin here to the left will let you basically pin that view so that every time I go to a view of service plans, I'm going to see this view first. So I know that's kind of come up in a couple different conversations, been helpful for people. If they have a view that they use the most often, setting that as your default view will save you a couple clicks. The next thing I want to show you is how to sort records in a view. So most any column headings that you have here in a view, you can sort by just by clicking in the heading in the ribbon. So I can sort either in ascending or descending order by something like a date or an individual. I could do alphabetically in ascending or descending order. There's also a little filter button off here to the side. So if I know I have a particular set of records in this view that I want to look at, I can click the filter button. What that does is put this little arrow next to each of the columns that I can filter by, and I can choose, we'll do plan start date as an example. If I click on that filter, it can tell me the ways that I can filter. So if I want to sort oldest to newest, newest to oldest, those that contain data versus not contain data, I can filter by a day, week, month, year, or I can even set up a custom filter. And for example, if I wanted to set those that were on, let's say, I'm going to go 2/6/2019. It'll filter a view where those that have a planned start date of 2/6/2019 show up in my view. I can either click here to remove the filter or edit it, or I can turn the filter off. Another useful button on views is this little refresh button. What this will do is actually refresh the view without refreshing your whole screen. So I know there's probably times during training especially where you've been told some processes take a little bit of time to generate an update, so you have to refresh your screen. There's times though where all you need to refresh is the view, so this button comes in handy. So For example, if you're providing, say, Tier 1 approval or Tier 2 approval, and you need to update the list that you're looking at because you just made an update to a record, you can click on the refresh list and it'll refresh that list for you, remove any records that should no longer be in that view, or add any records that should be in the view now. Another nice tool is the box up here that allows you to search for records. So this box here will limit your search to just this type of record. So in this particular example, I'm on a view of service plans. If I had a service plan number in mind, I could type that number in here. So this particular environment has a little different setup than what you see in production. Since it's our iLab environment, all of the service plan numbers start with iLab. But I'm going to do an example where I look for a particular service plan number. And once I search, it will show me that record here in my view. This is a little different than the search box you see up here. As you guys have probably started to realize, this search box will only search certain types of records, so things like individuals and cases. It won't search for a service plan up here. So if you have a specific service plan number you're looking for and want to find it quickly, I would suggest going to a view of service plans and typing that number in here. You also have the option of kind of tracing through recently viewed records. Up here in the toolbar at the top, you'll see a down arrow next to where it says service plans, since I'm looking at service plans. This will give me a view of all of my recently viewed service plans. So I don't know about you, but I've had those times where I'm looking at a record, I'm working with the record, and then I think I'm done, so I X out of it, and then I can't remember what record I was just on, but I know I had a takeaway from it. This will give you that list of recently viewed items that you can use to go back and reference and say, okay, I think it was this one I was looking at, and it'll open back up that record from that recently viewed list. I also want to show you another place that you can view recently viewed items. If you're not sure what type of record it was, or if you want a fuller list of records, there's a button right here. It looks like a little clock that says recently viewed items. This will allow you to see a list of those recently viewed items, and you can actually pin them just like we pinned the views we were looking at earlier. So you notice there's a little push pin here. I could choose my active cases, set the push pin, and it'll always appear on this list. Next, we'll go ahead and take a look at Advanced Find. So there is a button right here next to my name in the ribbon that'll tell me I can launch into Advanced Find. So Advanced Find is a pretty powerful tool, especially as you get more used to what type of information you're looking for in CAMS. It really enables a user to be able to drive all kinds of data collection. So think about any piece of information you're capturing on a record in CAMS. You can probably find that in an Advanced Find view. You can get a full list of those specific records that you're looking for, and you can specify exactly what you want to see. So I'm going to start by finding the type of record I want to look for. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger for you guys. The type of record I want to look for. In this case, let's go ahead and stick with service plans. To get quickly to the S's, I start typing service plan, and it'll drop down to the S's, makes it a lot easier. Essentially what this does is look for every record type in the system, so it can be a long list. The next thing it'll ask you to do is ask, what fields are you looking for? So here is a full list of fields that are available on a service plan. So think about any data point that you capture. On a service plan, you capture things like your plan start date, your plan end date. You can look for goals. You can look for tons of things. So I'm going to pick a field that I want to look for. In this particular case, let's go ahead and look for a care manager. It's going to default and say equals the current user. That would be me. I'm not sure I own any records in here. So I'm going to pick somebody else. This particular type of field is a lookup field, so it's actually looking up to another type of record, and it wants me to choose which person I want to look up to. So in this particular example, I'm going to choose Darla. Thank you for being my example, Darla.
Yeah, some cases in there.
I think you do.
I do.
You can search for the person's name. Once you check it, you can either double click it, or you can put the little check mark next to it and hit select, and it'll pop right here into the selected records. One of the really neat things about Advanced Find is I'm not limited just to one record in this selection. I could actually choose a couple different users that I wanted to search for service plans where they were the care manager. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and add Darla. We'll go ahead and add another criteria. You can do, I don't even know if there's a limit of how many things you can do.
Like active.
Yeah,
status.
You could choose status of active, for example. And we'll go ahead and do one more. We'll look for one with a plan status. That is active. So this advanced find is going to look for a care manager, that's Darla, where the status of the plan is active and the plan status is also active. Once you have all your criteria set up, you can go ahead and hit result.
Don't have any active.
Unfortunately,
No active
Darla
ones.
doesn't have any active ones. So I'm going to get rid of the Darla criteria. There, now I have plenty of records. So these are the ones that fit my criteria. Another one of the interesting things that you can do is once you have your list, if there's a piece of data you want to know about that list, you can add columns to your view. So up here at the top, there's a button that says Edit Columns. What's a good piece of data we want to know, Darla? Not to put you on the spot.
Whether it's waiver or non-waiver, maybe.
Okay. So we're going to add a column to see if the service plans are waiver or non-waiver. So here's a list of the columns. You can actually adjust them to the left or right if you want, however you want to do that. Then I'm going to click Add Columns in this case because I want to know, is this a waiver or non-waiver service
type,
plan?
maybe.
Funding type.
Funding type.
So here's the funding type. This is going to tell me if this is waiver or non-waiver. Once I select it, it'll go back and add funding type here. I'm going to say that's the last column I want, so I'll move it over. I'm going to click OK. So now if I go back to look at my results, you'll notice that that funding type column has been added to this view. So now I can tell this is a waiver service plan versus this is a non-waiver service plan. So think about any piece of data that you're capturing on a record as something that you can use to sort or pull into a view that's in Advanced Find. One of the really neat things about this too is that you're able to use these views to export data as well. So say, for example, you need a list of 3 individuals that you're going to go visit, and you need a couple of pieces of information to take with you. You can export this information into a worksheet and work with it outside of CAMS and then come back later to update CAMS. Okay, so it looks like some people are wondering about how to save some views or to add those to a dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to save this view. So I can go ahead and hit Save As once I have a view that I want to look at. And I'm going to name this something. So in this case, I'm looking at active status, active plan type, or plan status. And you can even give that view a description to kind of give in plain English terms what you're looking at. Once you have that all set up, you can go ahead and save that record. And this now becomes what we call in the system a personal view. So a lot of the views we've looked at previously have been system views. So that's something that our team of developers builds and releases out for everybody to use. So this is a type of view that everybody can see. This particular type of view that I just saved is a personal view. So that means it's one that I'm going to be able to see myself. If Darla logs into the system, she can't see it. If Laura logs into the system, she can't see it. It's just a personal view. So here's a list of, up top are your system views. At the bottom are your personal views. So I've done some other personal views as well, but there's the one that we took a look at. So let me just shrink this real quick. And I'm going to show you, if I go back to service plans, those views are in this drop down as well. So here's my system views that I set up. Let me click on my personal view that I just saved. And just like I could pin a system view, I can also pin a personal view. One of the really neat things about personal views is while Darla is not able to see that right now, I do have the ability to actually share my personal view with her. So say, for example, you're a user who has a view that you find really helpful. It's your go-to view that you log into and look at every day. You can actually share that with someone else, and maybe they can find it just as useful as you. So I'm going to go ahead and share this view with Darla. I'm going to click on Saved Views, and you'll see a list of all of your saved views. I'm going to put a check mark next to it. And I'm going to click back on Saved Views up here at the top, and you'll see a little Share button. So a box is going to pop up that gives me the ability to share with either a team or a user. So one of the interesting things in CAMS is you guys are loaded onto a lot of different teams. So for example, all the AAAs are on, if you're a care manager at a AAA, you're on that AAA's care manager team. So if you have a view that would be useful to your entire team, you can share it that way. Or if it's just maybe you and a couple other people that want to share the view between yourselves, you can do that as well. So right here, there's a button that says to add a user or team. It's going to default and search for a user. If you want to switch that, there's a little button up here that you can switch and search for a team. So in this particular example, I'm going to share my view with Darla. And just like I did on my advanced find, I'm going to either double click or hit the check mark and hit select. It's going to add Darla to that view. I even have control on my personal view to say, what do I want to allow Darla to do with the view that I created? Right now, she can just read my view, but I can allow her to write, which would be to update the view in some way. So if Darla had a piece of criteria she thought would be helpful to filter on the view, she would be able to do that. Do I want to allow her to delete? Append is attach things to it. Assign would be if she wanted to assign it to someone else. Or if I want to say, Darla, I'm going to let you update this. You can read it, you can update it, and I'm going to let Darla share it with other people too. Maybe there's somebody else that might come in later that also wants that. So once I hit share, what that does is that gives Darla the ability to see that view in all of the places that we previously looked at. So in any of those drop downs where I'm looking at those views, she's going to find that in the same place. It's going to say My Views. So the next thing we're going to take a look at are dashboards. So you've probably seen as you logged into the system kind of some default dashboards that pop up. If you're ever somewhere in the system and you want to get back to that default place, there is a button right up here at the top, right where the Microsoft Dynamics CRM logo is, that you can actually press, and it'll take you back to your default when you first log into the system. So depending on the type of user you are, you probably have a different default that you land on, but there's a lot of different dashboards in the system. So things from DA Field Care Management Supervisor, DA Field Care Manager, there's even some at the administrative level. For this sake, I'm going to go ahead and look at a DA Field Care Manager dashboard. So a lot of these views, we've gotten some great feedback on some potential tweaks to some of these views that we'll be looking at in the near future. So keep that feedback coming. This should be a useful place that you can work from. For each of the views that are built into your dashboard, you'll see in this particular case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different views that are built into this dashboard. There's also different views from within the default view. So the upper left, for example, has My Open Activities. If you hit the little drop down, you can also choose a couple of other views from here. So essentially, a dashboard takes views and compiles them together in hopefully what's a useful way for you to see those. So I'm going to take this, looking at My Open Activities. I want to show you a couple of other things that you can do with that. So in addition to being able to open up these records, I'm a person who likes to use all of my visual space. There is a button right here where you can see the records associated with this view in kind of a bigger window, which I always like. This particular one's kind of short, but it allows you the same functionality that you had in other types of views. So things like your filter options or sorting in ascending or descending order are all available from these views. Activities are interesting too because they also have some additional filters. This particular one has a due date filter where I can look for things that are overdue or maybe things that are due in the next 12 months or earlier. So some really powerful tools that you can use to analyze your data. Just like views too, you can kind of pop out the records and filter like we were talking about. A lot of them also have this little plus sign that you can use to add to that view. So in this particular case, if I wanted to add an activity record, I would hit the plus sign here, and I could choose the type of activity that I wanted to add. Okay, so we'll jump over from dashboards into assigning a case. So we've gotten a couple different questions about case assignment and how it works. So I just wanted to show you a quick example of how to assign a case. So there's two kind of major ways that you can go about assigning a case, and I want to kind of show you the three fields that come into play when you're doing a case assignment. So you've probably already all noticed that there is a care manager field on the case. There is also a AAA field, and if I scroll all the way to the bottom, in record administration, I can also see that there's an owner on the case. So if you know the care manager that a case needs to be assigned to, the easiest thing to do is to set the care manager field. So you'll see right now I'm currently set up as the care manager, but if I go ahead and click on the little magnifying glass, if I want to look up more records, I'm going to go ahead. Darla, thank you for being my example today. I'm going to go ahead and set Darla as the care manager, and I'm going to go ahead and save my record. So either the save button up here, I want to keep mine open, so I'm going to use the save button down here at the bottom. There's logic built in the system that takes the care manager field, and what it does, once it's done saving, is the logic will also update the AAA field, and it will update the record owner at the bottom. So that logic will handle switching cases between AAAs as appropriate. So if you know, if I'm in area 3 and I know I want to assign a case to area 4, if you know who that care manager is going to be, if you set the care manager here, it'll update the AAA field. And now I'm going to scroll down and show you that it also updated the owner of the record. So that's probably the easiest way if you know who that care manager is. If you don't specifically know who the care manager is, maybe this is a case where you're transferring a case between areas. I don't know who the care manager in area 4 is, but I know I need to assign it to area 4. You won't be able to set a name here in the care manager, but what we do have is an assign button that's up here in the ribbon. So if you click assign, this button's going to allow you to assign the record to either a user or a team. So if I know that this needs to go to area 4, I can assign this case. I'm going to say user or team, and then I'm going to go ahead and search for a record, scroll down and say look for more, because the default's going to be user. I want to switch this to a team. So we don't have all of the same team names set up here, but you'll want to assign that to that area's supervisor team. So again, we don't have the same team set up in this QA environment. We're going to go ahead and assign this one to area 1. That's why you want to use the area 1 supervisor team. Essentially, that error message that I got is because we don't have the same teams set up, and so that team that I just tried to assign this to doesn't have the rights to actually own a case record, but those supervisor team records do. So once you do that, the one thing I will tell you is it does not change the care manager field, so you'll want to clear out this care manager field when you're assigning it to another team. That way, once they own that record, they can assign it to the appropriate care manager. Thanks. Just kind of a note on that, there are certain users that have the right to assign cases to another area and ones that don't. So I think at this point you need to have supervisor level access or above to actually assign the case to another area. I also want to take a quick second to show you, I'm going to have that error pop up again. So let me try to assign this again to that Area 1 team. I guess I did have something. Oh. That was a user, not a team. I just did that to make sure you guys were paying attention. So I'm going to go ahead and click assign. We know that we'll get an error message because that user doesn't have privileges. But I just wanted to take a second to show you guys that there is this download log file button. These log files, if you open them up, if you send this with your help desk ticket, if you encounter something, both the screenshot of this error message as well as the contents of this download log file are really useful to our team when they're investigating different error messages that we get. Any information we can get on that is helpful, including what records you were trying to test it on, what you were trying to do. Even in this case, how you were trying to do that is useful information when we're trying to troubleshoot that. It puts us in a position where we can replicate your error more quickly, get to the root cause, and correct that as quickly as possible. Thanks.
This is Laura from eImagine again. So we kind of breezed through these slides, but these are all the demo slides that Stacy just walked through. We saw some good conversation there, so keep it up. The next section that we wanted to walk through are just some updates from the help desk. We do look at all your tickets, we analyze all your tickets, and we're trying to kind of analyze what are the things that are bubbling up and what are the most important priorities from there. So just based on all the information that we get through the help desk, we did want to just provide a few pieces of information to you all. So the first item, and I know that we sent out communication for this, but there are some issues that we were able to resolve within CAMS. So I know in our call on Tuesday, there was a lot of conversation in the chat about service plans not working. I want to take a moment to thank you all for bringing that to our attention. So we were able to identify the root cause of that issue, and then we did work on Tuesday to get that resolved. We then, during Tuesday evening, so during our maintenance window, so we have a maintenance window every evening where we have team members actually working overnight to actually resolve things. So we actually deployed those updates to production, which is the system that you all use Tuesday evening. So as of yesterday, folks should have been able to successfully renew a plan for an annual, to clone a plan for an update, to start a new plan for an initial, and then also confirm a service plan. So these were the things that were fixed and the things that we deployed Tuesday evening. We have seen some follow-up questions on these items, so I would just say please keep those coming. If you're seeing something and it doesn't seem to work as you would anticipate, please let us know. Sometimes that could be because there truly is an issue in the system, or it could be it's just something that we have to maybe show you how to walk through those steps, because it might be a little different than what you would anticipate, or maybe how that process worked in Insight. So we just wanted to bring those few items to your attention. The next update that we wanted to provide, and I know this slide is a little wordy, so please bear with us, is that the Tier 1 approval, we believe, is resolved. So we have seen some follow-on questions regarding this. So we did want to provide some information to kind of clarify how this process should work. But I will say, if you do have follow-on questions, please put those in the chat so that if there's things that maybe aren't working in the way that you would anticipate, we can address those either through additional clarification or maybe there's truly an issue that we need to take a look at. So bear with me while I kind of walk through this. And then again, if there's questions, please put those in the Zoom chat. So when a CM submits a service plan, the system runs logic and it determines what approvals are required and then sets that Tier 1 approval required and Tier 2 approval required field accordingly. If the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 approvals are required, the service plan first goes to Tier 1 approval. When the care management supervisor clicks on the Tier 1 approval button, it populates the Tier 1 approval and Tier 1 approval fields in CAMSS. The service plan then gets then gets assigned to the HCBS team at the Division of Aging for approval. The status will remain as submitted, and the Tier 1 approval button will remain in the ribbon. I know that this was a question that we had received from some AAAs, so you will still see that service plan, you will still see the button, and the status will be submitted. But please know that it has actually been sent to the correct team for approval. The service plan is shared to the AAA team so that the care manager and the team can still access the service plan even though they are not currently the owner. And we did that so that if there are questions or you need to reference that service plan, you're still able to access it. At this point, the service plan shows up in a view for DA, so the Division of Aging, to review and provide Tier 2 approval. Once the DA approves these service plans, the status will be updated to approved pending confirmation for initials, approved pending activation for annuals with a start date in the future, and active for update plans. So as I'm reading this content, my Zoom is popping up, so I do see people are putting some questions in the chat. We will be reviewing those and making sure that we clarify how this process should work, and if there's any issues with it, we will look into this because we do recognize that this is a very critical part of the work that you all do day to day. So I'm going to keep it moving. The next one is how to find the DA Paypoint Report. So we have outlined the steps here. So the first step in this process is to select that hamburger menu. So that was the little button with the 3 horizontal bars that Stacy mentioned earlier. So you're going to select that hamburger button in the top navigation, and then you're going to get a drop down, and you're going to select My Work. And then from there, you should be able to navigate to Reports. And then once you're in the Reports area, this is going to have all the reports in CAMSS that you have access to. So you'll use the arrows in the bottom right corner of the page to page over until you find the DA Paypoint Report. And if you are having issue even after we kind of walk through these steps, please do type a message in the Zoom so that if there's some additional materials that we need to send out or screenshots that we need to send out about how to access that report, we can get that to you. But essentially, once you find that report in the report list, so you've paged over to that report, you're going to want to go ahead, select it. It'll open up a new dialog box that will have some filters that you can fill out. And then once you fill out those filters or criteria, you can select View Report, and then that should actually run the report in CAMSS. So again, I know sometimes it's hard to kind of visualize why people are talking through steps, but if you do have questions about how that works, please do put it in the Zoom so we know if we need to send out some content regarding it. The next thing that we wanted to bring your attention to, I know we talked a little bit about RFIs earlier this morning, and about the RFIs being automatically denied. I do want to bring up that we are actively working on that issue. We also wanted to just let folks know that the time period for denial is 21 days. So we are actively working on it, but it is 21 days. But you should see a fix soon, and you'll see those RFI responses once we have that fix in place. We will be sure to let everybody know once that has been resolved, and we do appreciate your patience. The next item that we wanted to walk through was a question that we received through the help desk. So again, we have a wordy slide, but bear with me. So the issue was a care manager created new assessments for an individual. When eligibility determination was requested, the LOC decision field was locked for the reviewer to make a final decision. Currently, we have some end users other than supervisors that have the authority to review level of care, or in situations where a supervisor is out, we have supervisor on duty who will review this process. Is there an opportunity to alter this limitation for review? So right now, based on the permissions in CAMS, there is no way to just allow permissions for only a select supervisor's actions. You would need to give that user full permissions, so the full permissions that they would have. So the workaround that we have for this item is to select the individuals that you wish to be your supervisor on duty while you are away, and then request that your network security coordinator give these employees care manager supervisor permissions. So I did see some requests in the Zoom to send out that PowerPoint, so we can go ahead and send that out at the conclusion of this presentation, but we just wanted to make folks aware of one of the questions we had received on the help desk, and then this is the available workaround. So we did want to just thank everybody for their time today. We did try a little bit different format on the call. If there's things that you liked about it, please let us know. If there's things that you feel like could be improved, please let us know. We always want your feedback to try to make these calls as productive as possible. I will go ahead and hand it back to Jesse to kind of close the call today. And as a reminder, we are looking at all your Zoom chat questions so that we can get answers out to folks. So thank you again.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Laura mentioned, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate your willingness to work through this with us. Thank you for your patience. And again, as always, a big thank you for all the work you do. It's so very important. We'll talk soon. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.